It is Sunday, the 13th of May, 2018, and we are protesting today, which happens to be Mother's Day. Our usual protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and cover-up of clergy abuse and various other injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. But the emphasis today, keeping with the Mother's Day theme, is how Unitarian Universalist mothers cover up child abuse. Child abuse committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, child abuse committed by Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, and indeed child abuse committed by ordinary Unitarian Universalist lay people, some of whom may well be mothers. But yes, it's all about how mothers, and perhaps more broadly, how female Unitarian Universalists, as opposed to male Unitarian Universalists, participate in the cover-up of child abuse in the Unitarian Universalist religious community. So we're just going to start circulating the chalk slogan that we were looking at. There was an earlier chalk slogan that said exactly the same thing, but while I was protesting earlier, in my earlier morning session of protest, a woman came out of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and she got the Unitarian Church of Montreal's garden hose, and she erased that chalk slogan along with another one. She didn't erase this chalk slogan, which said the same thing, for the simple reason that I think it was out of hose range, and also she may not have known about it. But even if she knew about it, it was more or less out of hose range, so it would have been difficult for her to hose it down. But yeah, so basically I had 3 chalk slogans this morning, strategically placed on the sidewalk, as people are approaching the Unitarian Church of Montreal, saying Unitarian mothers cover up child abuse. Entirely truthful statement. I'm not saying all Unitarian mothers cover up child abuse, but I can say that certainly some, and in terms of my own experience, a very high percentage of Unitarian Universalist mothers that I know of do in fact participate in the cover-up of child abuse by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Sunday school teachers, etc. At rock bottom minimum, they are guilty of complicit silence. I mean, even if they don't actively participate in the cover-up itself, they are complicit in the cover-up via their refusal to speak out against it, their refusal to take action, and so on. But some Unitarian Universalist mothers, and certainly some non-mother female Unitarian Universalists, do in fact actively participate in the cover-up and even denial of abuse of children by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers and so on. So that's the theme of our protest today, an appropriate Mother's Day theme. And I decided to come back and resume my protest as Montreal Unitarians should be leaving the church after the Mother's Day Sunday service. I don't always protest as people are leaving. In fact, that's comparatively rare. I normally just protest as people are entering the church. But on occasion, I do go and take a break, have a coffee, let's say between 11 and 11:45, and then come back around 11:45 and protest for about another half hour. So that's what we're doing today. And one of the reasons I decided to continue to protest in the afternoon is because I really haven't said enough about how the Montreal Unitarian mother, known as Sue Montgomery, has clearly and unequivocally actively participated in Unitarian Universalist cover-up of child abuse. Indeed, Unitarian Universalist cover-up of egregious child sex abuse, such as what the Unitarian Universalist associations Canadian attorney, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, describes as such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. This picket sign says, helpless children have been raped by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Sunday school teachers, but the Gazette's retired, in quotation marks notice, justice reporter, in quotation marks notice, Sue Montgomery, never reported the Unitarian Universalist Association's misuse of Canada's blasphemy law in clergy abuse, cover-up, legal bullying. And indeed, we're talking about specifically how Sue Montgomery, in her capacity as the Gazette's justice reporter, literally refused to report on the fact that in June of 2012, the Unitarian Universalist Association did in fact instruct its Canadian attorney, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, to have me served with a cease and desist demand letter, which amongst other quite ludicrous accusations, falsely accused me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So that's what these picket signs refer to. Unitarian Universalists, more specifically, top-level leaders of the Unitarian Universalist Association, such as UUA President Reverend Dr. Peter Morales and UUA Executive Vice President Kathleen K. Montgomery, essentially did that. They hired Stikeman Elliott to falsely accuse me of violating Canada's blasphemy law and Unitarian Universalist Association clergy abuse cover-up and denial legal bullying, which sought to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, other Unitarian Universalist ministers, and also Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers and lay people and so on. So that's a fact. Sue Montgomery was made aware of this egregious and abusive misuse of Canada's anti-blasphemy law and legal bullying meant to conceal pedophilia and rape, and she refused to report that story. I also believe, and this is based on circumstantial evidence as well as some recent more hard evidence, that Sue Montgomery not only refused to report the story, but she used her influence within the Gazette itself and indeed within the larger journalistic community of Montreal to ensure that no one else at the Gazette reported that story. And basically I do believe, based on what I've heard from credible sources, that she even tried to persuade other journalists not to report the story. She essentially tried to discredit me, basically was telling people that my claims about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up of clergy abuse were not credible, and so on. She tried to discredit me. So this makes Sue Montgomery an active participant in Unitarian Universalist cover-up of clergy abuse, which includes child sex abuse committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. But that's not the only way Sue Montgomery, who is a mother, she has a son, and I believe another biological child, and she has also been a foster mother to a Haitian girl, so she's definitely a mother, a Montreal Unitarian mother, who has actively participated in Unitarian cover-up of clergy abuse, which includes sexual abuse of children. So here's another way that Sue Montgomery is an active participant in cover-up of Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse. She has been refusing, and she always refused, she never at any time reported any aspect of my protest against clergy abuse outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, even having been asked to do so well before I was falsely accused of blasphemous libel. You know, going back to the mid-2000s when Sue Montgomery first joined the Unitarian Church of Montreal, or first began attending the Unitarian Church of Montreal. On some of those occasions when I saw her approaching the church, you know, I said, hey, you know, when's the Gazette's Justice Reporter going to report on the justice issues that I'm protesting outside the church here, kind of thing. And she always refused to report, you know, going back to at least 2006, 2007. But that wasn't enough for Sue Montgomery. What Sue Montgomery did in 2007 is she participated in an effort by Reverend Diane Rollert, the minister of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, which, in my opinion, misused the SPVM police force and the criminal justice system to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. What happened is Reverend Diane Rollert came in as the new full-time minister at the Unitarian Church of Montreal in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, I sent Reverend Diane Rollert an email or two, you know, saying, you know, you really should engage in dialogue with me towards the end of resolving the conflict, you know, and you know, she didn't want to do that. Good day.
Enjoy your afternoon.
It's always a joy to be accused of blasphemy in the 21st century by atheists. Doesn't get better than that. So anyhow, getting back to things, the woman who spoke with me, by the way, is a first-time visitor to the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I spoke with her earlier, so she's been quite pleasant, and I wouldn't describe that as being dismissive. You know, when Montreal Unitarians say that kind of thing, they're essentially being dismissive of the protest. But anyway, this woman's a first-time, you know, a first-time visitor, so I can't really criticize her for being nice. So anyway, getting back to things, what happened is Reverend Diane Rollert basically went to the police and claimed to be very frightened of me, fearing for her personal safety, so that she could obtain a restraining order against me, which would, of course, shut down my protest in front of the church if she was able to obtain it. You know, that was the whole reason, as far as I'm concerned, for getting or trying to get the restraining order. It was to shut down my protest in front of the church, to make my protest invisible, and just basically gone. And it was clear also that they were seeking a permanent shutdown of the protest, not just a temporary one. So anyway, Sue Montgomery participated in this. She, along with other Montreal Unitarians, signed a deposition to the police, to the court system, you know, also claiming to be frightened of me or very frightened of me, you know, essentially backing up Reverend Diane Rollert. Okay, got a nice wave there from the guy in the Jeep. Anyway, backing up Reverend Diane Rollert's effort to obtain a restraining order, which would silence me. So Sue Montgomery was part of that, as were other Montreal Unitarians. So, you know, basically a dozen or so Montreal Unitarians signed sworn depositions to the police. Actually, I'm not even sure if they were sworn depositions, but they were certainly depositions to the police, to the court system, all claiming, oh, we're very, very frightened of Robin. Some of them even were claiming, you know, that they were afraid that I was going to come into the church and shoot them up, you know, like a mass shooter kind of thing. You know, and in fact, one of the people who wrote that kind of bullshit deposition actually spoke about how this was an imminent threat, you know, like it was going to happen any day now, you know, which is total insanity from the point of view of anyone who actually knows me and knows just how nonviolent I am. In any case, you know, so this kind of thing was done. Sue Montgomery was a part of it. And because one of the worst judges in Quebec court presided over the hearings for whether or not this restraining order would be granted. It was, in fact, granted. I do believe that a more competent and less biased judge probably would not have granted the restraining order. But this judge, who I don't mind naming, Roland Matt, she prevented me from properly cross-examining Reverend Diane Rollert, who, by the way, was the only witness there. So whenever I tried to question Reverend Diane Rollert, to try and show that she did not, in fact, have any reasonable grounds to fear for her safety, and that she was probably, either lying or suffering from, paranoid delusions, effectively. I was shut down. I was not able to question Reverend Diane Rollert in a way that would show that either she was lying or her fears were not reasonable. And so the restraining order was granted. It was for a 1-year period. But the Unitarians, they believed that they could get this extended indefinitely. And in their minds, this was the beginning of a permanent shutdown of my protest. Well, that didn't happen. When the restraining order ended, I did want to appeal the decision, but when the decision came down, it was in the middle of the summer, and the lawyers, a lot of them were on vacation, essentially. It was hard to find a lawyer, and I could have probably, at minimum, have got a public defender type lawyer, but nonetheless, it was difficult to get a lawyer. I wanted more than just the run-of-the-mill public defender lawyer. I wanted someone with some expertise in these matters, and basically no one was available, and so I missed the deadline for filing an appeal. So I took the pill of this 1-year holiday, as it were, from protesting, and it wasn't such a bad thing. I didn't mind taking a 1-year break because it was getting to be a little onerous, having protested for the better part of a decade. And